This ordinary sailor became an instant hero after saving his entire ship. The amazing thing is, he was just a cook. I had no idea how to navigate or control a ship, and yet he saved everyone on board. This is the incredible story of a real-life sailor who found himself in the most extraordinary situation. Our story begins with a fire breaking out in the kitchen of a U.S. Navy ship. It was a big problem. After all, this is where they stored all their food supplies. Now, this was serious because the ship was carrying 600 sailors. They were all hungry and without food. It would only be a matter of days before some of them started getting very angry. It was vital that they did something about this. The first person to see the flames was the captain. Fortunately, he was so shocked by what he saw that he fainted. This left the ship without a leader. It was now up to someone else to take charge and extinguish those flames. That's when Petty Officer James Kirkland stepped forward. Now, here's the thing about James. Sure, he was a brave man who put the safety of others before himself. But he was also just a cook. He didn't know the first thing about captaining a ship. In fact, he didn't even know how to read a map. But he knew he had to do something. It wasn't just the fire that was worrying him. As the fire got bigger, it started blocking out the ship's alarms. The sailors couldn't hear the alarms. They wouldn't know there was a fire. They might think it was just another drill. And if that happened, people would get hurt. He needed to do something to wake them all up and fast. His first order was for everyone to abandon ship. He then grabbed a fire extinguisher and tried to put out the flames himself, but it was no use. His fire was way too big for him to handle alone. That's when he made the decision to grab a megaphone and start shouting orders. He told the sailors exactly what to do and when to do it. He told them to grab life jackets and get off the ship as soon as possible. Now, normally, the captain is responsible for giving these orders, but the sailors knew there was no time for that. The captain was down, so they listened to the next best person, which was the cook. James then went over to the ship's radio and contacted the Coast Guard. He told them the ship was on fire and requested urgent assistance. Then he went back outside and continued helping people. He helped load the women and children onto the life rafts first. Then he assisted anyone who needed help. All the while, the fire kept getting bigger and bigger. Soon, the whole ship was engulfed in flames. There was nothing left to do except watch as the ship went down. But here's the thing. The Coast Guard hadn't arrived yet. What were they going to do? That's when one of the sailors came up with a crazy idea. They still had one more chance to escape, but it was a long shot. One of the sailors suggested they try to steer the ship toward an island. There was a small chance they could make it, but it was worth a shot. So they all agreed to go for it. They asked James if he knew how to navigate the ship, and he said he would do his best. After all, he had watched the captain do it many times before, so he kind of knew how it worked. Now, he had no idea how to actually steer the ship, but he was willing to learn. He took the helm and did his best to guide the ship out of the burning waters. Luckily, he had some help. A Coast Guard rescue boat arrived just in the nick of time and guided them the rest of the way. They successfully steered the ship toward the island and everyone made it off safely. When the Coast Guard arrived, they were shocked to find a new captain in charge. They asked him where the actual captain was, but that's when they realized he had fainted and was still unconscious. It seems like the smoke had gotten to him. Everyone cheered for James, the new hero of the hour. He had managed to save everyone on board despite being just a cook. He had saved the ship and earned the respect of every single sailor on board. That's when the captain regained consciousness. He was very confused at first. He remembered the fire, but he couldn't remember anything after that. That's when he was told what James had done. He was so proud of his cook. He congratulated him and thanked him for saving the ship. But he was also very concerned about something else. The ship was completely destroyed and all 600 sailors were now hungry. They needed food, and it was the captain's job to make sure they got it. But he had a big problem. The entire kitchen was burnt to the ground. There was nothing left to cook with. That's when he turned to James again. He asked him if he could somehow manage to feed all the men, and James said he would try. He might have been a cook, but feeding 600 hungry men is not an easy task. But he did his best. He looked around for any food supplies that had survived the fire and started cooking. Luckily, they had recently restocked on canned goods, so that's what he cooked. Soon the smell of soup filled the air, and the sailors couldn't wait to dig in. James had done it again. Not only had he saved their lives, but now he was saving them from hunger as well. It was clear that James was a true hero. He didn't think twice when the ship was in danger. Put the safety of others before himself and saved the lives of 600 people. But there was still one more thing. He was a hero to the sailors. He was still just a cook. He didn't know anything about captaining a ship. And if they ever got into trouble again, they needed someone else in charge. So the captain spoke to the higher-ups and explained what had happened. He told them that James had saved everyone, and he recommended they promote him. Now, he wasn't just saying this because James saved the ship. He truly believed James was capable of more. After all, he had seen how well James handled the situation. He knew James was brave, quick-thinking, and selfless. He was everything a captain should be, so he hoped the higher-ups would agree to promote James. They didn't keep him waiting for long. Soon, James was called into the captain's office. The captain told him he had good news. Because of his bravery and quick thinking, he was going to be promoted. He would no longer be just a cook who would become the captain of the ship. James was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, but he never thought he would become captain. He told the captain he didn't know anything about captaining a ship. He was just a cook. But the captain told him he was wrong. He knew James was capable of doing it. He had seen it with his own eyes. Amen. And besides, there was no one else to captain the ship. All the other officers had either resigned or retired. It was up to James now. James took a deep breath and accepted the position. He knew it would be tough, but he was up for the challenge. He thanked the captain for his support and promised to do everything he could to make him proud, and that's exactly what he did. Under James's leadership, the ship was rebuilt and was back in service within months. The sailors loved having him as their captain. They knew he was one of them. He was just a guy who did his best to help others. As for the original captain, he was never quite the same after the fire. He'd suffered from PTSD and eventually had to retire from the Navy, but he always kept in touch with James. He was proud of the man. James had become, and he often told him how much he appreciated what he had done. James, on the other hand, never forgot the day he became captain. It was the proudest moment of his life. He knew he had made the right decision by helping the sailors. He had saved their lives and become the hero of the ship. From that day on, James Kirkland became known as the greatest captain the Navy had ever seen. He showed everyone that it didn't matter if you were just a cook or a lowly deck swabber. If you had courage and determination, you could do anything. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. We appreciate your support.